All right, on to starting new projects. So the first thing about projects is new projects is that you need to pay attention to the timing. Oftentimes we will take on new projects just because it seems convenient or it came up, but that sometimes can result in a bad outcome or we don't do a good job on the project because we just simply weren't ready for it. One of the most important things that I recommend before starting a new project is to tie up loose ends. And I mean this in all areas of your life, your brain, your psyche, your energy, your relationships, your schooling, your homework, whatever it is that you can do to uh, have take those little pieces off of your chest and set them down. For example, before it's all the little things that you just kind of allow to build up until you pay attention to them and get them all done. For example, before starting to build this course, I backed up my computer, I caught up on my other work, I went carefully through my email to make sure that everything was doing fine on that. I went through my long-term to-do list and made sure that I wasn't going to try and start any other projects. I was learning Mandarin at the time that I started this project, and I decided to cut back on that a little bit to be realistic about my time. Speaking of which, uh, be honest about your energy and your ability and the ebb and flow of that. So before I started this project, writing this course, I knew that I needed to pull some energy from other areas of my life. I knew that with my current life and the way that I was using my time and my energy that I would not be able to do this course. So I had to make some decisions about what was going to work best for that. An example of this, kind of tying up loose end and being honest about your energy, is that I had uh, several thousand pictures from when I was living in Okinawa for 6 months. And on my trip there and my trip back to the United States, I had several thousand pictures that I had sitting in a Dropbox file that I had not put onto my computer. And all I wanted to do was put them onto my computer in a file called Pictures and organize them by where they were taken. I mean, this was like maybe a 2-hour project, and it was sitting on my to-do list for over 6 months. And I knew that I could not allow myself to start a new project, a major new project like this, until that was off of my chest, off of my to-do list. So before I started this, I said I didn't allow myself to start this project until after I had taken those pictures and put them on my computer, which I did. Also, on starting new projects, one thing that you want to ask yourself is, do I have what it takes to shine at this project right now? Do I have the skills? Do I have the knowledge? And do I have the time and energy right now? And if you don't, take care of those issues first or put them into the first parts of the project. So the example that I was just talking about with I had to let go of Chinese to a certain extent, my Chinese learning, and also I had to tie up that loose end about the pictures from Japan before I could start. And with respect to time and energy, a great way to handle new projects is to break them into manageable chunks in advance, to actually sit down and look at what the project is that you're trying to do and break it up into chunks in advance. This is one way to handle the fact that if you don't have the skills or the knowledge to complete a project right now, sometimes it feels like, oh my gosh, I've got this big project, I've just got to do it. However, if you take the time beforehand and break it up into different stages where you learn the skills and the knowledge that you need to succeed at it, in the first parts of the project, you can still feel like you're moving forward, even though you're not working on the actual project itself. Some examples of this are that I had to learn a lot about online course creation before I could start this project. So when I was thinking about it, I was working on those pictures from Japan. I was also looking online and reading about how other people created online courses. This is the first one that I've that I've created like this, and I wanted to do a really good job at it and create something that was going to create meaning for other people. So I put that as part of my goals for this project, was to learn about those things. So even though I was kind of doing that preparation, not really sure what to even, where to look or what to start with, I still felt it like I was making progress on this project. So the best way that you can do that is to take it to the most basic that you need to take it. So if you want to learn calculus, you had better be really, really good at addition and subtraction. And yes, I'm using a rather extreme example just to make the point. But if you're not really solid on your addition and subtraction, then you should not be trying to learn calculus. You should be doing the addition and subtraction first and then adding on that to whatever your level of understanding is. So to use a non-math example for all the math phobes out there, if you want to write poetry, if you want to write like Shakespeare, you had better know your ABCs really, really, really well. You'd better know how to use words and know your letters. So another piece of starting new projects is that it's important to set yourself up for success. This is what this thinking beforehand about, do I have the skills or knowledge? Do I have the time and energy right now? As well as breaking things into chunks in advance comes in really handy. It's much easier to continue something than to start something new. So if you put that skill building and knowledge building into the earlier chunks of the project, as you're building on this knowledge and putting yourself through the project, it's much easier to continue those skills that you already learned than to learn them as you're going along as you need them. Of course, there will be lots of pieces that you will need to learn as you need it as well. But if you can get the basics in place first, that really sets you up for success. This is one of those, don't expect to run before you can walk. Learn to walk first and get really good at it. And then as you start learning to run, then you will have a much better success rate at running. So one of the ideas for this is working in your ideal challenge zone. So what is an ideal challenge zone? An ideal challenge zone is that sweet spot where you feel challenged but not overwhelmed, where you feel like so where you feel like you can do something, you're not completely overwhelmed, and yet you're being challenged at it. Let's look at that a little bit more carefully, more closely. So I use a red, yellow, green system for this because it makes the most sense to me. So green zone for challenge is 2 plus 2 and ABC. Most of us those are very, very easy for us, and if we do those for too long, it gets very boring. The pictures has a little smiley face on it, and that's great for the short term, but really in the long term, it's not fun. It's not enjoyable, and you're not learning. The red zone, on the other hand, is the calculus, it's the Shakespeare, it's the things that for most of us are way beyond us, and that even thinking about trying to do them may induce anxiety or stress. So the yellow zone is where it's just right, where you're kind of in that middle zone, you're not quite sure, you're not freaking out, you're not overwhelmed, you're not super stressed out, but you have to think, you have to struggle a little bit to make things happen. That is where you are learning the most. That is where you are working at your level of competence and creating things that are most meaningful to you. So part of this is a way to explain the yellow zone is if you have to fake it till you make it at least a little bit, but not so much that you feel overwhelmed, you are in the right place.